Okay, it's recording. Let me turn the volume up here. Okay, so we haven't talked for a while. A few weeks, right?
Right.
And you were just saying everything is going so well.
Yeah, it's just really easy. Not really putting any effort into food or even into thinking about anything to do with body image, and it's rippled to other parts of my life, which are, I find myself very peaceful and at ease. And so like even right now, I'm sitting outside of the academy where I went and had a massage this morning, which is another awesome thing that I've done for myself, for my body these last few weeks, as I've been getting massages and just appreciating the use of my body and just as a way to give back. And I was in the sauna afterward, and the lights, all the power went out, and I just felt super calm. I'm the only one in there. It's really dark, and it was just like no reason to react at all. It just was super peaceful, and I just kind of kept doing what I was doing. I was stretching and stuff, and then I waited, and I stayed there for a while, and then I just felt when it was time to leave. So I walked out, and at that very moment, there was a sweet gal with her phone and the light of her phone. And I said, would you mind just holding that so I can get into my locker? And she did. And I just got into my locker and got my things, and I quietly left the building. And as I was going out, there were some people that were kind of frantic. One girl that worked there, and she said, oh no, and she was just talking in random. And I said, yeah, I was in the sauna. And she goes, oh, that would be so scary. And I said, no, it was really easy. It was great. I'm so grateful this lady was there. And I just could recognize the chaos around me that I wasn't a part of, but I was just happy to let everybody have their chaos. And that's kind of a mirror of even what I experienced. I think it was just a few weeks ago, someone messaged me and wanted to get me, they were trying to share a diet. And without even missing a beat, I responded back with, well, I said something to the effect of, I'm recovering from an eating disorder, and diets are not a strong choice for me at this time. And I sent it back, and she goes, oh, I totally understand. And then later I went, wow, did I really do that? I wasn't even an option. It wasn't even an entertained thought.
It was probably, the energy was probably more towards, how do I be gracious about this? It's more like, how do I care to some degree about not, hurting their feelings, or because to you it's like, why would you do that? Why would I do this?
And I felt like it was important to be open with the reason in this case, because maybe in the back of someone's mind they might think of that later. I don't know. That it just for me to be honest, that this isn't just me not trying to spend money or for whatever reason trying to dog her. There's a reason, and it's a really good reason.
Yeah, it is a really good reason. And and you and I both know that it's almost easier just to say you are recovering from an eating disorder. Like, that's easy. Right?
Yeah.
That was the easy response. Even if you could say, yeah, I willingly do not want to do it.
I feel myself more honest and open, and just like we talked about, my belly's up, my palms are up, and it just is what it is. And it's the freedom and the ease and the joy.
Yeah, what that is the removal of the ego. The removal of, when I say ego, I'm not judging it. To me, ego is survival mode. It's like what we have to do to survive, and it's very me-oriented and very defensive and very manipulative and always trying to find proof that I'm surviving, and I need to have control to survive, and so you're grasping intensely at your survival. That's ego. And when you surrender your survival, which is essentially letting go of the ego, when you're willing to be judged, you're willing to be shamed, you're willing to be rejected, you're willing to be wrong, you're willing, you go into the vulnerability of those things, which are absolutely triggering to that, hierarchy of need, the third, specifically the tribal hierarchy of need, that's triggering survival, which is the ego, right? When you're willing to surrender to, I am rejectable, I am maybe not adequate, I accept and I admit it. When the humility, that's kind of like a potion, if you want to call it, when you take the humility potion and you admit to yourself and to others that you are inadequate relative to the best, right? Not, it's always relative to some best. That surrendering of the ego and the willingness to fail and the willingness to lose, and like you and I have talked, the willingness to suck. What that allows you is the space and the openness to then unconditionally just love, right? And to be, there's compassion now, and then there's kindness that is it's unconditional kindness. It's not manipulative kindness. Now there is this ease around even just like what you described, the chaos of all the electricity going out. When you are out of that ego mode, out of survival mode, you're more gracious, you're more willing to accept this is what happened, and it's really not going to serve me to be upset, to complain, to be frantic. Getting frantic isn't going to improve anything. All of that survival work, I've done that. I don't want it anymore. I would rather sit in a dark room. And so the feeling that comes across, at least for me, is it's like people think you're really laid back. Like, oh my God. And you're just like, oh, it's no big deal. We can, it's like diminishing hardship. Because you would rather have the ease of the heart, it's.
Yeah, there's no reason for me to be anything but just calm. I mean, it's not like just giving over my will to someone else. It's just the ease of the beingness, and it's really just who I am. I feel safe and secure. I know that all is well, and that confidence is the reason that I didn't react. I just choose not to go there.
So what you'll notice, so if we were to just observe this from a behavioral point of view, that before your fight or flight response was so active and so engaged, things like that are easily upsetting, easily distracting. Stories you can tell, I mean, it's like evidence of things going wrong. You can create whatever story you want about it. When someone is no longer in those lower states of ego survival, the need for things to meet expectations, all of those things that we forecast, the fantasies and all that. When you come out of that, you're more willing to exist in reality and to allow reality to happen. Partly because you've already given up the survival game. So it's kind of like, give up the survival game. Just give it up. It's so much easier if you just accept your reality and then know, well, whatever happens, I'll adapt at when it happens, versus I've got to prevent, expect, forecast, control, clean it up, organize. All of that, you could say type A persona is really symptom of someone who is in ego and survival mode.
Yeah, I can see it so clearly. And even before that occurred with the power going out, I didn't even think about it till you were describing it, but I'd gone back to the locker and the locker was not working. And in the past, that would have just killed me. And I was just really like, okay, I'm going to wait a minute and try it again. And it still didn't work. So I went and got someone. She came and unlocked it. So all of that had been occurring, and I just had been flowing with it, where in the past, I know that my need to defend my safety would have created much more territorial situation. I can just look back at different situations where I was much more defensive
and paranoid and
Mhm.
worrisome.
Mhm.
All of those are symptoms of survival mode.
Yeah.
So, and survival mode is like really hard to be in. It's that primal animal part of our brain. And and the hard thing about it is that we're intellectual beings too. So it's like we intellectualize our survival mode.
Mhm.
And it's full of guilt, like, because we have this level of awareness, and then there's guilt over what's going on, or shame, or judgment, and all of that. And you know
Yeah.
it's just suffering. That's what we call suffering, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, and
So
I don't think I even realized I was suffering. I just was
mm-mm,
in it, and I
mm-hmm,
didn't know anything different. I just
mm-mm. Well, when
did
you're
it.
when you're there, the goal, the directive would be to find a solution. So we find ways to cope. So we do things like micromanagement, like the cognitive distorting of the issues to make them worse than they really are. That's like some weird way that we are trying to actually protect ourselves. So it's like we're in this storm of chaos. And so by controlling everything, it's like creates some form of equilibrium. It's kind of like, I'm depressed, so I need a narcotic. Between those
Mhm.
two is equilibrium. There is a balance
Mhm.
point between, I'm in distress and I need something to make me feel better. So we have this weird codependency with our victim position, our we're failing fear. Okay, and I'm going to overreach to prove that I'm not failing. And so you have this extreme fear with an extreme overreach. And then all of that work ultimately makes you think that you're surviving. When
Yeah.
in reality, if you look at what you're doing, you're clearly not surviving. Someone who's surviving, that's like, you relax. You wouldn't have to work so hard every day, all the time, right?
Yeah.
And that's why all these little things that occur over time become catastrophic, because you're
Mhm.
trying to maintain a fine balance between ultra negative and ultra positive, which is like slavery amounts of work. And little things then make you feel like overwhelmed, and there's a sense of like resentment around how hard things, why is this so hard, and it just compounds, you know
Yeah.
and there comes a binge, and there is the screw it moment, like, I can't handle all this, so why am I trying,
Right.
and in the world of survival, when it comes to starving yourself, that's like so difficult. And so you might as well give yourself something as easy as food, which is what our primal instincts are saying is the number one priority in the moment,
Yeah.
you know and so that narcotic, so for an alcoholic, it's not the drink, it's the drunk. So they need to feel drunk, they want to have that liquid grace, right? When I'm drunk,
Mm.
everything relaxes, I'm done in my survival mode, I can actually be the real person I am, but it's always under you know the influence of the drunkenness. And so it's, you can blame the alcohol, you can blame the food, we can blame body image, but underneath all of that, coping and working to just keep your head above water, is all of this negativity that's not coming from necessarily your reality, it's coming from your perceptions that are creating a survival mode reality.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
kind of like the belief that God inherently hates sinners, fire and brimstone type mentality.
Mhm.
You're born to think you you're incapable. You suck, and you're not going to be loved, and you're not going to be accepted unless you look like we want you to, act like we say you should, pay where we think you should pay, do what we think is the best priority. Like, you're going to have to prove yourself to us. So you start out negative as a child when you're taught
Mhm.
these things. If you think about that, for you to be accepted into your family, into this tribe, into this clique, they begin by saying you by yourself sucks. You have to do what we tell you to do. And
Yeah.
that immediately stimulates that fear of rejection, abandonment, disapproval, fear of loss, fear of inadequacy. And then that negative, we can call that a negative 10, you're doomed now to work to a positive 10, which is actually a 20-point shift.
Yeah.
Right? And just to create equilibrium, a sense of balance.
Yeah.
Anyways, so it's by getting rid of the survival need for approval. The survival need. I swear every time I sit out on my front porch, the same guy drives around with his equipment. Can you hear all that?
A little bit. Yeah, there she is. I'm going to go make noise right by her.
Yes. Oh, there she is. I've been waiting. I've got my binoculars. Let's just drive by it 5 times. Let's just mow the grass outside. Let's just, the other day I was sitting here doing a video, and this guy stops and he starts drilling holes in the sidewalk right next to me. I'm just like, this is so amazing. I sit out here random times, and this guy is just driving by.
Yep.
Anyways, so I find it really interesting because so many people judge the ego. Like, ego is like shamed for some reason. And because it is so self-centered, right? And when we meet someone who is in that survival space, it is so about me, my needs. I'm a victim, my needs, and they're very self-oriented. And the whole process is so about fear too. Fear. Here's what you need to do. Me.
Yeah.
It's something that is so easily judged, but we are all the same in that circumstance. We would all have the same way of being in that space, right?
Yeah.
And so when we judge someone else in that space, it's as if we are so unique. I'm special. I would never be like that. And you know what? If we're real with ourselves as animals, that mechanism is so valuable. If we look at how the human species survived for millions of years, we can actually thank the ego of survival around, I need to survive, we have to survive, my tribe is going to survive, and all the war that occurred with ego. We can thank it because ultimately, in terms of our animalness, it is why we are still here today. So there is a function to it. But that function has so many limitations, and it really creates a block to higher ways of being. And so when I'm realizing too with this process that I may say to you, you really got to fall in love with your body. You have to be okay with your body. You need to feel love and compassion for your body. Well, that comes for people easily when they are in those higher, when they're not in survival. Accepting your body is almost just like instant, like amazingness, because it is amazing when you really open your mind to observe the body that you're in. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So to get there, however, if you've got all this ego around perfectionism and I need to prove myself, and I'm extremely afraid to be for everybody to find out that I'm actually a normal human being. I'm not special. The specialness of the ego. I'm not special. I'm not better than anybody. I'm actually not. So to get rid of that humbling process is required before you can actually go into the higher level of like total unconditional love. And then once that unconditional love occurs, it's just like, why would you ever do a diet again? What's the point to that? It comes after. But the painful part of this process, and this gets back to what we were talking about before I started recording, the painful process is the actual willingness to suck and to fail, and for people to witness your failure, and the embarrassment, the ego, the deconstruction of the survival of me is the painful process. And people come to me and people go get help typically when they are in so much misery, it's almost like cannibalizing and eating themselves from the inside with their meanness and their I-ness and it's this like survival way of being. They're so miserable that the only way it seems possible to get out is through an equal opposite torture, that it has to be that hard and that much time. And it is so like, it's going to be so hard for me to let this go. Well, actually, it just takes humility. Again, that's like the special potion.
Yes.
All it takes is humility to get rid of that ego and the willingness to admit you're not special. You're not above anybody else. Everybody else is pretty much the same. We all have that need to survive, and your need to survive is about you. And just admit that you're no different. Your shit stinks too. Your church isn't better. Your family isn't superior. Your richness isn't better than their richness. I mean, the willingness to surrender your survival and all of the weapons you use to feel safe. That takes humility. That's all it takes. So the effort and the time involved is however long it takes for you to have more humility. That's why I believe people have to, sometimes people have to suffer even more. It's like, okay, how much more suffering are you going to need before you're willing to let these weapons go? Your ego, your survival. When are you done? How much death and despair do you need to feel psychologically before you're willing to admit that your weapons are actually turning against you, that your ego is actually, in your survival, is actually doing you harm? It's served a purpose in your animal stage, but when do you have the humility to surrender that surrendering, the humility of that surrendering, quick, it's easy. That's where it's like,
it is so quick and easy once jump off the cliff, or just, there have been, in the last while, if there's been any inkling of, it's hard to even describe because I haven't been there, but let's say last time when we talked, I was mentioning some foods that I'd been eating, and I referred to them as healthy, and you said, whoa, back out of that, don't go there. And I took a look at it, and it was really easy to just back right off and just make sure that I wasn't labeling foods in any certain way, and just letting the body the particular foods that I was talking about have come up for me maybe a handful of times in the last 2 weeks, and I've eaten them, but they're not like I have to do this every day to be, in that zone. And so I felt and I just would feel myself kind of either doing it physically, or a few times I just went outside and just laid on the grass with my hands out, kind of like I was floating on the water, and allowing the waves to take me wherever, and the body gets to let me know if I can't tell if I'm hungry yet. Maybe I'll just go lay down for a bit and let the body really tell me when it's ready. And was that my ego wanted to eat that, or is the body really hungry for that? And just kind of here and there, I've just used that as a way to tune in to what the body wants. But mostly it's just really always there. I just know if it's hungry, if I'm hungry, if I'm thirsty, if I need to go to the bathroom, it's all the same. It just happens very, very naturally.
Yeah, and without real effort. There's not a whole lot of effort involved. And yeah, I think what you're describing is surrendering. You surrender and allow what it is to take a power over you. That is the anti-ego, if you want to call it that. Because the ego is survival that says you have to do something, hide, say something. Maybe you need to research this. Like, the stress and the pressure of have to do something. You have to do something. And the surrendering is, I am willing to, it feels like death, willing to submit to this and allow, and I'm not going to respond to it. So whatever it is going to take me with it. I'm
Yeah, so I did.
surrendering.
So I did kind of die. A part of me did die. That
Yeah.
the part that really cared about all that.
Yes. It feels like a form of
Yeah.
suicide. It really does. It's kind of like I'm
Yeah.
surrendering something that I used to love, and I used to. That's your ego survival. That's just something I
Mhm.
survived with. It was my blanket. It was my whoopee. It was my pacifier. It was my cover. It was my cloak. It was my persona. It became who I was,
Yes.
and I surrender it. And and you surrender to the feelings of loss. And it isn't a self pity. I lost. It
No.
is. I am so humble. I am in pain, and I surrender it to whatever it is. And I am no longer using it. I'm no longer, which means I am now surrendering to what it was I needed it for.
Yes. Yes. Whatever I needed it for. The other side is also so sweet and peaceful.
I heard that description, sweet and peaceful. I was actually thinking about that the other day, how I would describe the feeling, and sweet is a good word, and innocent. So innocent. It is so innocent, and it's understandable when we're children how we just believe what we're told. It's innocent.
Oh, yeah.
And even when we look at adults who are just dogmatically spewing out, or just they're brainwashed, that's their innocence that's coming out.
Yeah.
It's innocence that they just believe what they hear and they say it. That's their child. That's a child that's speaking.
The child, yeah. And I feel no need to defend what I know now. I mean, where I'm at. I have no need to defend it. There's nothing.
Because it can change.
Yeah, it's just a being. It's just being in that, and yeah, the ease of it all opens up the space for me to just, I've heard that in the last week, as the videos that you've shared have been phenomenal, and so much of a great reminder of how much I enjoy my life. Just living my life. I'm free to live and enjoy and be aware of people around me, situations around me, and I'm just here and grateful and. Oh yeah, I need to do that. I need to do this, but there's not all that other noise in my head.
You're just being a part of it, and you're actually willing. And what it allows you is the position of witness. I'm just witnessing it all. I'm witnessing everything. It's so easy to just witness it all. It's like you witnessed what you described with the massage and you witnessed the whole thing.
Yeah, I just witnessed it.
Isn't that great? It's kind of cool.
It was really, and it was kind of interesting to realize that they didn't get me at all, and that was okay. But it was important for her to stay in her drama. That was where she couldn't relate to me because that wasn't a part of what she was wanting to experience.
No.
And so that's okay. But so I just
you give it and this is where it's so much easier because you're no longer in charge of judging everybody else.
No.
Because it's like, oh, well, whatever is happening and however they are is where they're at in their awareness in the process of what they're learning. And I'm no different. I'm doing the same thing right now. I'm doing the same thing in my process of being here and living through trial, error, this and that, things going away, things coming to me. There's all sorts of, I'm witnessing a lot. And that doesn't mean that I'm living passively. I still have an active part in what I'm doing today. And I've got to get up and I got to walk my dogs before it gets too hot. And then I need to do yoga so that my back doesn't hurt. And I got to write today, even though I'm totally not inspired. I have a bill. I can't pay for it. I don't have the money, I gotta drive around town to get my daughter to this and that. I mean, so it's not like I am totally passive. I am still an active part of my life, and being in this space, there is just no drama. Right? Because I don't want drama, and so I change my perception at all times. I have this, it's like an ability once you're in this space to go, well, my first response to someone attacking me is to want to kick them in the ass. and to punch him in the face. But I don't want to do that because it's like you have this awareness around consequences immediately too. You have foresight. It's all of a sudden your foresight. The brain is so functioning on a different level. Now that your oxygen is not going all to the animal brain, it's like your frontal cortex is actually starting to like light up, and it's, you just go into surrender. It's like, I surrender that I may not be able to write. I might not get this book published. I surrender all of that. I surrender to the fact people might judge me because I'm having a hard time getting it done. I surrender to, the highs and lows of finance and bills and right?
Absolutely.
It's like, how much control do we really have when it comes down to it? How much do we really have when it's like, oh, I might get a heart attack? A heart attack, ultimately, should we stress about having a heart attack?
No.
Because stress could be the cause. So why don't you just relax and be aware that when I go, I'm going to go. So I am not going to take my life, which is really about what I'm experiencing, and create my experience to be about fear of what I don't want.
Yeah.
I'm going to take my experience and make it about fear of what I don't want, which ultimately attracts what I don't want to manifest.
Yeah. Yeah. So, there's the absence of fear, the absence of fight or flight is another way that I would describe it.
Isn't it great?
It's just not there.
And it is a choice.
And it's a choice.
Yeah, well, it came with acceptance of loss. That's why I go right into just accept you're going to gain weight. That's ultimately what you're going to have to do. For you to get there, we got to get rid of the survival ego that is creating the idea that you need to be thin. What about my health? We got to get rid of that ego. What about no one's going to love me? Yep, no one's going to love you. You got to dismantle that one too, not even negotiate with it. I'm going to be alone. You just get rid of all those blocks. Those are the blocks. Those are the ego. That's the part of you that says, me. What about me? What about me and me and me and me and me?
Yeah. What if I'm uncomfortable?
Yep,
what if
you're going to be uncomfortable.
I don't have any clothes that fit?
My knees hurt. Yes, your ego.
Ego.
Yeah. It's like ego. That's your survival. That's all of that meanness, minus. But what about specialness? What about me not being seen as the best? I want to prove myself. Me, once again. What about my family? Well, it's all about you, because you're caring about their perspective of you. The meanness of it, right? That's the ego. A lot of people don't connect those dots. Partly because they're sold it as this is important. Health is so important. It is.
Well,
it's symbolic of love of your body.
Yeah.
What a cloak.
Well, and it took me a very long time. Everything that you've described, I have gone through a stage and a layer or two or three of letting go and getting clear on that. And I'm just, I made a lot more work than it needed to be, but I'm okay with that. I know why. I can look back and see what I was thinking and where I was, what my perspective was, and it's okay.
Yeah, of course, because there's no way to get here unless you get through that. That was there, and there was a need you had for that. So if you need that, ultimately, then there is a block to where we're at today. There's a block. Because you need this over that, but you don't even know what you're getting on the other side until you get rid of that need, right?
Yeah.
That's why it's like you don't have the awareness of this, what this is like, ahead of time.
No. And I did know that I wanted it, though. And I was really clear that I was going to do what it took. And when I was miserable enough, I was even more clear that I was going to do what it took. And
Yeah.
I'm going to stay. And I'm staying in this. I'm
Surrendering.
not going to go back in the cage, or I'm not going to go back to trying to do things the same way. I'm going to learn.
Yeah, I love that.
That shift in consciousness there, when I shifted to that space, that's when I started to really discover
this is what it's like.
The ease of it.
Yeah. So I think it's important also to discuss in this recovery process. So many people are like, well, I need a plan. Well, I don't know where your beliefs are yet until you present them to me, and then we blow it apart. It's kind of like the health stuff. I kept on, you can't do that. That right there has an assumption that you know what health is, and that's ego. I know what health is. Who the fuck knows what health is, really?
Right. Letting go of I had no concept of what it meant to let go. I couldn't even that, and I can see why someone would want a plan, because that's what we live in. There's always
that
some
would be
plan
the ego. Like we're gonna control
really,
it.
There isn't. I mean, and letting go is literally letting go. And it was terrifying to me I'm gonna go on a vacation, and I'm not gonna plan my food and take everything with me. I'm just gonna eat whatever, and then I'm not gonna feel good then, or I just had all of this, and I would think, well, no, maybe I should start later. I mean, just always defaulting back to my planning habits, and literally letting go of everything, and letting the body tell me what it needs. That it was kind of like, we described it once as we were talking. You said something about, it's kind of like unraveling I don't know if it was like a braid or a
rope or something. You're undoing all the knots, and you're just
there's just several twisted things that overlap with another, but as everything starts to loosen up and there's space around it, it comes apart pretty easily. But it takes some, like for me, it was even like when I was trying to make the hunger scale a diet, for example. That was my way of stepping to the next. Until I got that I was doing that, and that wasn't what this was about. That's why it served me so much to hear the previous recording, because I was like, yeah, I totally get that. That is the easiest. I easily stepped to that before I could unravel the next little part, which was awesome. And then the other things crept in. Maybe I started back into thinking I needed to have this for health, or my feet hurt, so I needed to do this. And it has been delightful to it's now just all undone, and there's not any.
Yeah, well, so here's the thing. You didn't have this end result in your mind ahead of time as a goal. In fact, all you really wanted was freedom, which was, I don't want this to be in my head. I don't want this. So a lot of people get to a place where they're like, but then what do I have? Then there's nothing. That is also the ego. I have nothing. Without this, there's nothing. So that to me is also the next part of the vulnerability and the willingness of surrender, is you are surrendering to the feeling of nothing.
Yeah.
Right? So that, I don't know if you recall that moment. It's not like we've discussed every moment. There is a feeling of total nothingness without it.
Yeah.
And the willingness and the humility to surrender and say, I am surrendering my somethingness to nothingness. I am giving my something to nothing. And I am absorbing, I am going into nothingness. Now, when we talk about faith, don't you agree that this is very different than the intellectual idea of what faith is?
Yes.
This is like complete surrender of life and death. It feels like life and death. It feels like you're going to be blown away as sand in the wind. It feels like you won't exist. There is no you that exists. The me that is always about me, is now
And
gone.
it's just going to get more painful. It feels like it's just going to keep getting worse and worse.
And it's permanent. It feels permanent, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I've got to do something to fix it. That's
And there's the
feeling.
ego.
And when I called you, when I had a kind of an emergency intervention type of a call a while back, I think for me, one of the pivotal moments was leaving the call. As we left the call, you said to me something like, "There's nothing to fix. You don't have to fix this. There's nothing to fix." And it just hit me so strongly that that's true. There is nothing to fix. That's awesome. There is nothing to fix. What if there's nothing to fix? And I just kept.
It feels good. It feels relieving.
I'm done. There's nothing to fix.
I am done fixing this.
That was free. That was a stepping into freedom. Is like,
okay, that was humility.
There's nothing to fix.
Okay, that was humility. That's I am not fixing this. There is a feeling of loss and failure and completion in that failure. It's like, I just lost the war. The war is over. And
exactly.
There is a feeling of, there's a sadness. There is a feeling of like calmness, but it should feel like devastation is all around you. So there's this sense of humility around it all, that I am done pretending. I'm done fighting and pretending I lost. And the willingness to admit failure has such a powerful freedom, because you no longer have to defend yourself. You no longer have to fight. You no longer have to protect. You no longer have to do all that crap.
Yeah.
And what's amazing to me is when that shift happens, it's like all the ego is crashing down, because you're willing to die. I'm willing to suffer, or I'm willing to go into pain. I'm willing to go into nothingness, into an abyss of I won't even exist. I am suffering, so I would rather go into non-existence, and I surrender my existence and myself to non-existence. I surrender it.
Paid for by
Holly. On the other side of that is this freedom, and it's easy, and it's relaxed, and it's sweet, and it's innocent, and all is good, and that includes all of your failure. All of your failure is good.
Yes, it makes me giggle. It's like I don't regret it. I'm actually excited.
Right? And it's appreciated. And I can see after that, that was important for me to fight that hard.
Yeah.
It was important. There is an importance to that for me. And I'll never do it again.
No.
Ever.
That's part of the acceptance and the grace. Is like, okay, I came here to learn. I mean, to me, this has felt like one of the huge lessons of my life, and I came here to learn, and I did. I just learned something huge, and I couldn't have learned it. I wanted to learn it this way. I can see it. I can see how easily the whole thing unfolded, and I kicked against the pricks, if you will. I just kept kicking until I finally was willing to lay down and say, "Oh, I'm done. I don't have to be right. I don't have to. I don't have to have my way."
No, and I'm okay being wrong, and I'm okay with the embarrassment that everybody will find out that I'm wrong. I am willingly surrendering to the embarrassment. The embarrassment is now above and beyond me. It's like, it's so opposite of what you're told to do, right? It's so opposite of what your instincts are telling you to do. Your instincts are telling you, run, avoid, hide, deny, denounce, move, change, adjust, right? Everything.
Yes.
But to stay with that embarrassment, just allow the embarrassment, surrender. The other thing is, in that embarrassment, don't you agree too? This was something, at least for me, the embarrassment of failure really was more, I gave it so much power. And the illusion of the me in the ego is that embarrassment, because you believe in this survival system and you believe it is superior, that if I fail, the embarrassment of failure is permanently going to be there, because the system is permanently right. the rightness of the system will always be right. Therefore, if I'm wrong, I am always wrong.
Yeah.
And but in the willingness to be wrong, you are essentially giving yourself forgiveness of the rightness of the system. And it inadvertently takes the rightness of the system and takes the power away from the rightness of it, to where it becomes a relative rightness, not a permanent rightness. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that was very well said.
And you now see beyond the mirage of the system that was dogmatically instilled in you from a system, whether it was religious dogma, body image dogma, health dogma, feminine dogma, masculine dogma, misogyny, political dogma. The rightness is actually something you might want to, that's like duality. That's like I'm right, you're wrong. That's survival, that's ego, right? It's the let me give you proof. I have everything to show for it.
Yeah.
Whereas in terms of what we're doing, I have nothing to show for it except for my integrity. I just have, I mean no harm. How do we show that I mean no harm? How's our proof? Where's the proof?
It's ethereal. There's nothing concrete.
Whereas the ego wants concrete proof. I have a Bible. I have a scripture. This is proof. That's proof. It's dogmatic. It's not questionable. It's right. And anything other than that is wrong. That's survival mode.
Yeah.
And so what happens again when you're willing to surrender to wrongness is the ego of the rightness feels permanent wrong. So the willingness to even just surrender to the permanence of wrongness completely dismantles the rightness.
Yes. It does.
And so you see that it is an illusion of wrong and right. It's an illusion.
Totally.
Yeah. That's no different than it's an illusion of health. Think of the infinite, the thousands of things that have to happen in this moment for a cancer cell to multiply. Is it really the sugar?
No.
Right? Do you see what I mean? It's like, that's like so singular. That's so myopic. That's so this and that. Blame. Right and wrong. It is like holy.
But I so believed that when I heard it. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's got to be it.
Yes, that's the sugar. And so we're not saying that that's wrong. We're just saying that there's a really large picture being omitted from the conclusion of a cancer cell dividing.
Yes, and
right?
It inflames it like in my mind, it's so inflamed and it became so important that there I was trying to walk on the extended rubber band that's all tight, and I'm trying to walk along that, and then if I fall off because I have something that I shouldn't have eaten, I fell off the rubber band and everything's ruined, and I'm an awful person, and the whole cycle is awful.
Yeah. So by observation, you could actually look at the idea of being exclusive about everything else and being basically inclusive of only the one concept of sugar causes cancer, that ultimately your fear of that may actually be supporting what you're afraid of.
Yes.
So this is where we say, you know what, if I'm going to get cancer, I'm going to get cancer, and I'm accepting that right now. I accept it. I accept it. I am not afraid of it. I'm not afraid to die. I am going to listen to the body. I'm going to trust the millions and millions of years of evolution, that the human body is so capable of environmental toxins and you know what? Let's just talk about the chemtrails that are being sprayed all the time above Boise, all the goddamn time. You know what? Chemtrails. I'm cool with that. There's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah.
Should I take my life and fixate on chemtrails?
Yeah. Yeah, around my house they spray, they call it mosquito abatement, and they're out spraying for mosquitoes all the time. All this big fog of.
Who the fuck knows?
So,
right? So at
I
some
can focus
point,
on that.
I surrender to my fear of getting cancer. I surrender to it. I surrender to my fear of diabetes. I surrender to the heart attack. I surrender to falling to my death from a cliff that I'm being heaved off of. I surrendered to that all about 20 years ago. I surrender to fatness. That means fatness wins. That means being heaved off of a cliff to my death wins. That means I surrender to it all. And in there is this amazing ability to then love and have compassion to the person throwing me off the cliff. I don't have to defend. It's not about me anymore. I have this awareness to then encapsulate. Why would someone do that to another human being? The amount of pain and suffering they must be in to believe that heaving someone off a cliff to their death is going to do them some good. Anyways, that was all in my head, right?
Of course, yeah.
But the willingness to surrender to that is like surrendering your life willfully.
Yeah.
And then you're out of survival mode. You're out of it. And it's like, you look at the studies of what Maslow described as bliss, right? When people come out of that survival state of being, the creative part of the brain is more active. The narcotic area of the brain is always somewhat active because you're getting pleasure out of listening to that bird over there and looking at the tree and you're in wonderment around how it grows the way it grows. And is there a reason that branch is going that direction? Does it really benefit maybe the root system? I mean, you just start to think and you get pleasure out of just observing and being all the time.
Yes.
And so these really big lows, even if you're experiencing the death of your mother or a sister of yours is going through a terrible time or your dog just got hit by a car, all of those things require loss. But there's a difference when you're not afraid of loss. There's a difference.
Yes.
The fear of loss is suffering.
That you handle it in a present way, and as you say, you adjust as things come up, and it leaves that space in my brain to be creative and to handle it with my full attention.
Yep, and I loved what you just said. It's being present with the loss. That is the truth. That is so true. You're present with loss rather than running away from it, avoiding it, being angry about it, or victimized by it. You're just present with loss, and it's so human. It's like, it's such a beautiful part of love, really, when you look at loss and the feeling of pain with loss in terms of like, I lost my dog or my mom, or I feel for my sister. It isn't a poor them, they can't handle it. It is, I am compassion for the way it feels, however they're feeling about it. I have compassion for myself that I am going to miss my mother. That I have compassion for this dog that was put down by an owner that just didn't want to care for it. I have compassion, but I don't have fear of the loss. I don't have fear or sadness for the animal. I just have compassion for loss,
Right.
Anyway, so it is amazing, isn't it? It's so easy.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Just so wonderful.
I know. I want you to think about what you were afraid of. And before that terror, I mean, it was horrible terror and anxiety, exhaustion, and all. Was it really as scary as you imagined it to be?
Oh, no, not at all.
I know.
A lot of it, I think I was afraid to be wrong, to fail, to, and just kind of maybe just even a habit of fear and management of, just always managing things, just afraid that I wasn't enough. and this was part of the proving of it. And so once I let go of the need to be right, a lot of things in my life feel easier and are clearer to me.
Mm-hmm.
So it affects everything. But I think that's why I laugh so much, because it's awesome, because it's just such a symbol of lots of other ways of being that I was doing. I was doing things the same in other habits in my life, or in other patterns, other areas of my life. So I've just been feeling one freedom after another as I look at this and as I look at that, and it serves so much more than my body, even though my body gets to have a break and be in charge of itself.
Mm-hmm.
And other areas get to be, other people in my life get to have more of me to experience. And
so my question for you is, do you think you'll ever binge again?
No, I can't even imagine that it would be needed, because there's no fear of deprivation. There's just no reason to. I can't.
I know.
It's like I can't even remember why I would do it. I do think that it just I just would be emotionally, or there was some reason that I felt like I had to fix something. And if there's nothing to fix in my life, if everything's already complete, I just would treat food as a need. It's just a way to answer hunger.
Yeah, and it's no longer evil to you.
No, it's not at all.
Yeah, if you take away that evilness,
value in it anymore. It used to be such a morality issue for me.
Yeah, if it was evil, like if you believed that, it would come right back. I know, because then your shame would come back. Your guilt about wanting to eat it would come back. Yeah. Your fear of it being around would come back. And don't you agree, that would require you kind of like, I go into my head and I'm like, I would require brain damage for me to willingly go back into that. I mean, I'd have to literally have brain damage done.
Yeah. It's not even in my consciousness. And
right? That to me is amazing.
One of the ways that I can even tell is just how quickly I answered the gal that invited me to this diet. I was just like, oh my word, I'm so happy I answered that way, because I know that I didn't have to think about it, or it wasn't tempting at all. And that to me would be the quickest way to see me go to a binge, would be to, if I tried to adopt some kind of diet based on that my body needed to be fixed.
Right.
And then I'd be back.
Correct. But that's like, you would have to do that. You'd have to become unaware of what you're now aware of. So how do we become unaware of what you're aware of?
Yeah, it's really not possible.
It's super freaking hard. That's why I said brain damage.
And it'd be hell, because I know the difference too.
I know, right?
It was before.
I know. And because there is a way for this to be easy. So why choose hardness? There's something maybe that you're not aware of that you need to be aware of. And so what happens too is a snowball effect around wanting to be aware. And if you're feeling like a victim, or you're feeling that way, you're now equipped to go into it and resolve it, versus allowing it, not knowing what it is, not recognizing what it is, and then it is now controlling you, the ego.
Yes. Yeah. So it's not that there wouldn't ever be anything come up, but if it did, I would process it, and I would look at it differently, and I would have grace and compassion. It wouldn't ever get as bad as it did, because I know what I know.
Correct. You're aware of what you're aware of, and there may be more to be aware of. That's how I feel.
But it would be processed like I've been practicing over many weeks, and then actually going back years, and I have an awareness now that is beyond what I've had before, so that way I get to go forward with where I'm at, and that's awesome.
I know. It's so awesome. I'm so excited for you.
Thank you.
Do you know what I love about this process is it's not mine. It's not my program. It's all you.
Yeah. You're just facilitating that.
I didn't do shit. I just asked a lot of questions and questioned a lot of your thoughts.
And your awareness allowed you were in your freedom to do that and to see it.
Yeah, well that awareness comes from being it's like everybody has this. It's just you have blocks to this awareness. You know? I don't know.
Because I want what I wanted, or I thought I wanted it more than.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out how to verbalize how this process works, but other than I don't even know. We just got rid of beliefs that basically were traps. They're beliefs that trap you in that space and there's no way out. And those beliefs are things that you never thought would be a block. How could that be a block? How could my desire to be healthy be an issue?
It sounds pretty innocent.
Right? It does sound innocent, especially when there's legitimate issues that you believe in. Like your foot pain. Do you feel that? That's real. You know?
And I just had to get it out of the box of, oh, well, it must be food. And because I still have things to work on with my feet, but the massage and some other things that I've been doing that have nothing to do with food or my body image. But they serve my body. And so, yes, I will attend to things. It's not that I'm turning a blind eye to every need that the body has, but it's from a whole different space of awareness.
Yes, and there's no neediness on your part. You're not using it to create an illusion of betterment of your life.
No.
But that's also because you're not taking that foot pain and making your life feel miserable or worth less because I have foot pain. My life is less valuable because I have foot pain. Like that story right there, can you see how that would predispose someone to then overreach to be, this will make my life so much better.
Yeah, and it will solve it. Yeah, it's the magic bullet.
And so it's like, okay, with my back pain or the back pain that is occurring in my lower back, I don't believe my life will be made better without back pain. It's just life without back pain. It's still life.
To it.
Yeah, and so when I do yoga, I don't position yoga to be, it is medicinal, but it to me is not life. Right? Because my back pain isn't lack of life either. In fact, back pain is life. You know? I just don't, it's kind of like, I was cutting chicken for potato and I chopped part of my thumb and it didn't go through the thumb. It went through the fingernail. I'm sure you guys are really loving this in the video. I don't think that this is taking away from my life. It's just annoying. It's there. I gotta wait for the thumbnail to grow out. It gets caught and then it rips because I have to cut half of it off. But do I feel sorry for myself? No, right? That would be the victim position, and my life is terrible, and this is part of the story. Yeah. And my story is terrible. I deserve to go shopping.
Yeah, you just deal with it. It just is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. It's kind of like, yep, none of my business. Body's fixing it on its own. I'm not worried about it.
Yeah, and that's a really good analogy. The body will take care of itself, and if I just stay out of the way.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not to say that, let's just imagine. I say I get cancer. Let's just imagine that would happen. It's not that I wouldn't go get care or that I wouldn't make the effort. I am willfully surrendering life prior to, however. Like if this is the end for my book, for the life of Robin Woodall, I don't have cancer. But if I did, okay? This is the end of this body's lifetime here. And so I accept that ahead of time. So now what I do in terms of medical procedures, are just, if it works, it works. If it attends to the body's needs, it attends to the body's needs. It's none of my business. It's a physical thing, not a me thing. It's not about me. Make sense?
Yeah, it's not.
So it takes out the anxiety and the fear and the panic and the manipulation and the anger. It takes away a lot of the suffering part of accepting loss.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is it really loss? I mean, if you really look at it, the body is giving you life. So if it's a giving of life, the givingness is changing of life. It's just a change in your, it's flesh that's dying. I mean, now we're getting into a different way of thinking about what life is, but it's like, is there even loss of life, or is it just less life? It's a different life.
Yep, it's just the vehicle.
Totally.
The vehicle.
Anyways, awesome. All right, well, we've got one more session in the package you bought, so let's get that scheduled.